Heads up, Basic Brewing Radio listeners, the American Homebrewers Association has a special deal just for you. Join the AHA or renew your membership in the month of August, and you'll receive a free copy of Designing Great Beers by Ray Daniels, one of my favorite beer books. Just head over to homebrewersassociation.org, click Join, and use offer code BBR at checkout. With Zymergy Magazine, money-saving member deals, and access to exclusive events, including the National Homebrew Competition, the AHA is an indispensable resource for new and veteran homebrewers alike. Visit homebrewersassociation.org, use code BBR, and claim your free book today. Offer ends August 31st. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, August 13th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, lots of good stuff, lots of good Mead stuff from San Diego. Tim Leber joins us to share his experiment comparing meads made with wine yeast and bread yeast. He also shares a Bochet-style mead that's a burned mead made with a crock pot. And a passerby shares an amazing habanero mead that shows off the flavor of the pepper and not just the heat. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. And if you buy any of our DVD combos, you'll get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener. You can follow me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're on the Google Plus as well. And thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. You know how it works. Whenever you think of Amazon shopping, think of us first and click on our associate link on basicbrewing.com. That'll take you back to Amazon where you can shop to your heart's content. You won't notice any extra. It won't cost you any extra, but you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site. But remember the offer at the beginning of the show for the AHA. Go to homebrewersassociation.org and click Join and use the offer code BBR at checkout, and you'll get a free book, a copy of Designing Great Beers by Ray Daniels. You know, that book, Designing Great Beers, I had no clue about how to make a recipe, but after I read that book, I felt more confident in kind of figuring out how to put things together. So anyway, you can get it for free. I recommend it either way. You can find our Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes or Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry podcast directory and on the Stitcher app as well. All this recording stuff ahead of time is throwing me off. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support. And thanks to everybody who's done so already. As I just mentioned, I'm recording this show ahead of time because of family commitments, doing some traveling around for college stuff and such. So no email on this episode. I was listening to this interview, and it's one of those that captures the fun of home brewing, sort of the spirit of home brewing in my mind, sitting with friends, sharing good mead, doing some science and learning new things along the way. And it also illustrates why going to the National Homebrewers Conference is such fun. So anyway, we cover a lot of stuff in the recording, and I want to get to that quickly. But first, I want to talk about our friends Desiree and Dave from High Gravity in Tulsa. You know, I brag a lot about the electric brew in a bag system that I got from them. But for those who want to stick with the more traditional style of brewing, High Gravity also has 3-tier electric systems. On highgravitybrew.com, the Build Your Own Electric Brewing System lets you customize your system to fit your needs. High Gravity offers systems that can brew 5 gallons all the way up to 2 barrels. And on their website, you can choose from a variety of controllers that control your heat and your pumps. You can pick the one that's right for you. And for ingredients and many other products, High Gravity offers $7.99 flat rate shipping. Check all that out at highgravitybrew.com. Now, I had to do a bit of editing on this episode. We were sitting poolside in San Diego, and when we began, we were all alone. But soon, somebody randomly walked up and asked if we had a phone charger, so we had to pause for a minute there. I cut that out. And then some kids started jumping in the pool and having fun next to us, which was fine. It's not too distracting. And then a friend of Tim's, Amanda from Kansas City, joins us for a while. You'll hear her on there. And then Jeremy from Arizona, who was the father of the kids in the pool, heard us talking about mead. And so he brought a bottle of his habanero mead to share with us. So stay tuned for the answers to these questions. Can you make good mead from bread yeast? How do you make a Bochet mead, a burnt mead, in a crock pot? And how do you make a delicious habanero mead that shows off the flavor of the pepper without blowing your head off with heat? Well, Tim Leber, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We have Andy Sparks.
Glad you want to. I'm glad to be here.
I pointed the mic at Steve. You're interchangeable. Well, Steve Wells.
Thank you for calling me interchangeable.
That's what she's. No, never mind. And we have a longtime friend.
Yes.
But first time appearance on the show, Will Gillespie.
Good to see you again.
Say it again.
Good to see you again.
Now we have to explain Will's history. We first met at Andy Sparks's Christmas party a few years ago, and you were brewing down in Louisiana.
Yes.
And you said you had listened to the podcast.
That's right.
And then you were brewing, before we knew it, you were brewing in Fayetteville at West Mountain after Andy Coates left, right?
All correct.
And then before I had a chance to talk to you there, you moved away to Brooklyn, and now you're here in San Diego.
I get around. Yeah. It's good to be here. It's good to be back in San Diego.
So, and you have a certain credential?
I'm a BJCP Mead judge. That's actually when I first met you at that party. The reason I recognized your voice was because I had been linked to the show via the BJCP website as study material for the Mead exam. And I had just finished studying for the Mead exam, and I was at that party, and I heard your voice from across the room, and I said, "That sounds familiar. I know that guy. Who is
Wow, that was some enchanted evening."
Yeah.
And the crazy part is, he was there for an interview at a different brewery, and didn't take that job.
That's true.
But came to the party with the people that owned the other brewery. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. Small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it. So, Stephen Wright. Okay, now back to you, Tim. Remember Tim from the beginning of the podcast?
It's been a while, but I'm still here.
What do we got going?
All right, another one of the big controversies in making mead, because that's what I've been addressing, the fruit, and last year was boil, is people talk about using bread yeast in mead making. And I am on record extensively online as saying, don't do that. It's a bad idea. And I'm a data guy, and I'm addressing all of these myths head on. And so that's what this experiment is. One is bread yeast, one is 71B, which is the good standard mead making yeast. It's what Michael Fairbrother uses at Moonlight, to actually see what happens when you use this yeast in making mead. And the results are pretty conclusive. So we'll have to see after you all taste.
Well, after we bombed out our tastings with the Burlosopher, pretty conclusive. Is a high standard to meet. So
I couldn't pick a donkey in a glue factory.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either, but
yeah. Well, if it makes you feel better, I did a triangle test on this after reading Experimental Brewing, and everybody was able to pick the odd one out.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
You have it. You should be able to pick which one's different.
Especially because we have
but
two.
There's only two. There's only two. Yeah. So.
Okay. So we're you're going to pour.
Right.
And then we're going to taste. Should we just do it?
Well, do you want to hear what the background is? So
talk to us.
These are both. Again, I made one big must. I made 5 gallons of must with 15 pounds of blackberry blossom honey that I got. So, and then I split it into 2 batches. They got staggered nutrient addition. They, at exactly the same time, they live side by side throughout the entire fermentation process. I use staggered nutrient addition and degassing, which I think does make a difference. It's probably going to be the subject of my next experiment.
Helps me.
But so they're exactly the same all the way down. The only difference is the yeast. So I think that'll try to keep all these variables to a minimum. I'm a data guy and a science background, so everything has to be the same. I've got a very big spreadsheet of all the figures and everything all the way along. So,
and I see that there are labels on the bottles.
There are labels on the bottle, but they're not labels that readily identify to you which is which.
Okay.
They're kind of Greek. It's black and white.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right, there you go. Last time we had shapes on the.
Last time it was shapes.
Captain.
This time I went with colors because I thought people would be able to pick up on my shape scheme. So,
I used the Ultra machine. I captured it off a Nazi submarine. Last time and hoped that it would help me this time, but apparently you changed the code.
That's right.
I'm dead. I'm dead in the water.
Enigma.
Or Enigma.
Yes.
What did I say?
Ultra.
Oh, that's the Japanese.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
Yes, it has.
And it ain't over yet, folks.
Okay, so are we ready to to crack and pour?
Yep, we are.
So to speak. And we're out here. It's they call it June gloom. June gloom here in San Diego. It's been cloudy most of the time that we've been here. There's a breeze blowing. It's a cool breeze, but it's overcast now. And I feel like a golf commentator. I'm filling here when I should be just stopping and editing, but I'm not. Because
it's like Harry Carey.
Yeah. My favorite planet's the sun.
Walters is up to bat, but here's a guy whose dad in 1926 had assisted triple play. But this guy had like the biggest. For Harry, the story was more important than whatever was happening on the field. So the first one we poured was white, and now we're pouring black.
Okay.
All right.
So white is left. Andy, you want to go first?
Honestly, they're pretty similar to me. I'm not. I don't drink a lot of mead. They're both very sweet. One has a slightly more aromatic note. The other one seems a little flat aromatically. But they're both pretty sweet, and that seems to be kind of what I'm tasting most of is the sweetness, I think. Do you want me to guess, or should we just wait and go around to them?
Well, let's gather more information. First of all, I agree that one hit me more aromatically. The other, I think, tastes more sweet to me, which, if my impression is correct, means that it finished higher and is more sweet. But I don't want to color people's impressions too much.
I got nothing.
He's already mixed his into a suicide.
You've added cranberry juice.
That's right. That's right.
Down the line.
Well, I agree with you, though, that one is definitely sweeter than the other, and one is more aromatic. So we're not really ready to reveal, but
right.
I agree with you.
Will?
You know, neither one of them are terrible, honestly.
Well, thank you.
They are.
Right.
They are different, though, and I definitely vastly prefer black to white. Black is a little leaner bodied. It's a little drier. I think. I mean, neither one of them is dry, but it's drier. It just has like a little bit more of a refined flavor, whereas white, it had more of a raw, kind of under-attenuated honey nose and honey flavor. And I also actually got a very strong kind of solvent fusel alcohol thing out of white when I was getting at least those first few sips. Now, which one's made with which yeast, I have no idea. But I'm more into black, just first blush.
Is anybody else willing to step out?
Well, I would just agree. I mean, I like the black one better.
Yeah, I like this one better. It seems sweeter to me. I got more aroma off of the first one.
The black. That's what I poured first. No, the white.
You're white.
The white one's
sorry.
first.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that. The white
Okay,
one.
the white one.
White was definitely first. I can help
White
out
was
there.
first.
Okay, white.
The
okay,
white is harsher. Yes.
Yeah, I
mean,
get-
it's just like it's just harsher, and it's just not as good.
Well, I get more aroma off of it, maybe because it has more kind of maybe that's the alcohol
Yeah.
pushing the aroma off of it. I'm going to step out and say that the white one was bread yeast, and it fermented too much and stripped all the good flavor out of it, but it's got this aroma coming out of it because there's more alcohol. And the black one gave the preserved the characteristics of the honey. And I'm not looking at Tim because it may be embarrassing. Steve?
I got nothing.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm thinking like the black one, the second pour is probably the more flavorful. I'm going to guess that's the yeast that is the one that most people use, right, and not the bread yeast. But it's a real push for me. I'm really struggling to tell these apart.
For me, the white just kind of has some of the characteristics I would associate with a stressed fermentation, which I would associate with a yeast that was not bred to ferment that particular substrate, in this case honey, so I'm going to go with white is the bread yeast.
And now that I feel safe,
Well, you don't trust me?
no, hell no. I agree completely. I just think that the black it's just in such better balance with itself. The flavor's just far superior. So I'm going to assume it's the Mead yeast.
Tim, is this going to be embarrassing?
It could be. It could be. So
It's gonna be bad.
So I will tell you that these both started at 11:22, starting gravity. One finished at 10:46. The other one finished at 10:19. So the one that finished at 10:46 is about 10% alcohol. The one that finished at 10:19 is about 14% alcohol. And the one that finished at lower specific gravity is the 71B. The bread yeast conked out way early and left a ton of residual sweetness. So the one everybody prefers everybody prefers the white, right? Is that what everybody was saying? Or the black?
The black.
Everybody prefers the black. The black is Fleischmann's yeast. Now, I have said I am on record as being opposed to bread yeast. On the internet, I frequently say do not use bread yeast. I was wrong. Because, now here's what I think is I have a theory about why. But it did leave a sweeter mead with slightly more aromatics, which I think is because it's sweeter and there's more honey character behind. Universally, it was preferred by the tasters. Now, I will note that I did a tea test on this. Again, I was reading the experimental homebrewing book with Drew Beecham and Denny Kahn, and so I did a tea test on it. And the only one that showed a statistically significant difference was overall impression. But the rest of them were pretty much a push. But everybody preferred most people preferred the bread yeast over the wine yeast. Now, when this was younger, the bread yeast had a definite phenol character that every experienced taster picked up on. It has since gone away. But when it was young, it was very obvious plastic phenol, nasty. I mean, it was there. But people were liking it because it was sweet. The bread yeast was better. Now, I think the reason I've always had a problem with bread yeast is that I've always gotten phenols and off flavors out of it. But I treated this carefully. I treated it like I always treat my mead. I gave it staggered nutrient addition, and I degassed it, and I was very careful with it, and I think that gave the bread yeast a strong advantage over your normal Fleischmann's, stuff that most people do.
Balloon on the top pitch.
Yeah, I think if you were balloon on top of the carboy, I think you're going to have that same problem anyway.
Right.
But I think if you treat it with respect and treat it carefully, that the bread yeast it'll give you a sweeter mead. And if that's what you're going for because you want to throw a lot of spices at it or a lot of, some very aggressive flavors, if you want to do like a ghost chili or something where you need that sweetness, I'm going to say bread yeast is an okay way to go as long as you're careful about it. Right. And the advantage is it conked out early. It conked out at 10:46, for God's sakes. I mean, it was... And by the way, day 1 to day 44 on this was all it took to ferment either one of these meads. But the bread yeast did not appreciably change. Actually, it was 28 days was really the most of the fermentation time. And the bread yeast really did not appreciably change for the last several days of that cycle. Now, they both went down a little more after I let them sit a little while. But so, if you want a sweet mead, treat it with respect. Very important. Treat it with respect. Yeah. Treat it right. Bread yeast is okay.
Huh. Wow. Now we've done the last mead that I did was fairly sweet, but I used US-05.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sweet, but it's a tasty, clean mead.
Yeah. I honestly think that if you want to really preserve that character, you're better off with US-05 than Fleischmann's, because it's fermented, it's designed for that purpose, and I think it'll be cleaner. But there are a lot of people. There's Joe's Ancient Orange Mead is a recipe out there that I loathe. I hate it. I tell everybody who wants to make mead, do not make that recipe because it uses bread yeast. And I think it produces a lot of fusels, a lot of nasty off flavors. But I think it's because people were just throwing it in and not giving it the right environment. So
yeah, it's been a long time since I've read that recipe, but it seems to me that that part of the recipe was like throw it under a counter and let it go, right? Or am I misremembering that, or did I read a bad instruction?
That was a goat jerky you were going to make.
That whole thing is it's like so much. It's a lot of honey. It's Fleischmann's yeast. It's a cut up orange and raisins and a tea bag, and it doesn't really make mead. It makes a mead-like thing, but it's the first recipe a lot of people try. So, but it's a very, very bad recipe in my opinion. It teaches a lot of bad habits. But I think if you treat it with respect, like I've been saying, you can do well. But I was really surprised and flummoxed when I saw these results. I did the numbers 2 or 3 times because I could not believe the results.
Well, let's talk about the 71B. I mean, it was harsher. It was harsher on my palate. Why and what could we do? I mean, I'm just completely. My world is upside down.
Okay, I gave both of these meads to the same person a couple of days apart. Didn't tell them what they were.
Yeah.
But not next to each other. And on its own, the 71B yeast is fine. It's sweet. It's got a little austerity to it. It's a little drier, and people like it. But sitting next to this big sweet honey bomb, it shows poorly because it's got more alcohol in it, so it seems harsher. It's drier, so it seems more astringent, more bitter. So if you didn't have these next to each other, this is a whole different mead. But because you're drinking them next to each other, it's like drinking a London Porter next to a giant barley wine. Nothing wrong with that brown porter, but sitting next to this big gnarly barley wine, it's a huge difference.
Right. So I do have it right that the 71B attenuated further,
yes,
right?
Much.
Left the drier mead. What I think is really interesting about this is even though the 71B dried out the mead more, I feel like it left behind a lot more honey character.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you get more character of what the honey represents, and you get nicer aromatics out of it. Because that was something everybody commented on, was they liked the aromatics of the white wine yeast better than the bread yeast. So I think this is a tool in your arsenal to use if you're going to do something crazy. And I've got some crazy ideas coming, folks. Stay tuned.
Now, did you just say that everybody liked the aromatics of which better?
Everybody here seemed to say that they liked the aromatics on the white, which was the 71B
right,
better.
Exactly. Yes.
But they liked the flavor and stuff of the bread yeast one better.
Right.
And I think that's because it was so sweet, it just kind of overwhelmed everything. I gave this mead to, like I said, several people on its own, and people really liked it by itself, the white wine yeast by itself. And then when I gave them the other one a couple days later, they liked it too. But because they weren't next to each other, you didn't like, well, here's something really sweet and then something more, dry and a stewer, or however you say that word. I've been drinking a lot, folks.
Yeah, well, it's been a long day.
But it was a whole different thing when you taste them side by side, and I think it doesn't show well against the other mead.
Yeah, when you first poured them, I stuck the 71B up to my nose, and I was like, "Ooh, that smells really good, floral." And it smelled like good honey.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I didn't get that much aroma, but it flip flopped when the flavor characteristics were.
And that actually, when you look at the numbers, and I'll provide you a PDF you can upload to the website. People seem to like the 71B better in the aroma, and the bread yeast better in the flavor. So I think it was very clear, but we'll see what this looks like in a year. It's like the last experiment we talked about was the boil, no boil, and after a year, because if everybody at home remembers, we talked about the boil being hazier than the no boil when we talked about this last year. Well, I looked at a couple of bottles of that before I came, and they're both crystal clear, but the boiled mead has a good quarter to a third of an inch of sediment in the bottom, and it's all fluffy and stuff. Now it cleared out, but it's very so
interesting. Well, this is cool. Yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah.
I'm making my next mead with bread yeast, I guess.
Well, if you want that really sweet character, go for it. But you need spices or something to go with it.
Well, I was going to say they both seem to be, I won't say equally sweet. The bread yeast was sweeter, to be sure. They're both plenty sweet, but just the 71B just seemed to have an astringency to it that just wasn't very appealing. And so, wow, I'm just really blown away by this. This is kind of shocking.
I think what's nice to know about this is, now if I'm ever sitting around and I want to make mead, but I don't have mead yeast around, or I don't have like fresh ale yeast around or whatever, I won't let that stop me from making mead now. I'll know I can just, if I do everything else right, I can use the Fleischmann's yeast and still get a pretty nice, or at least have a chance of getting a pretty nice mead out of the deal.
What else have you got, Tim?
Oh, I brought just
Something special?
This is another.
Is that a clean sock?
This is a clean sock. Okay, so you all have talked about Bochet on the show.
Yes.
So, and everybody
Burnt
says, "Oh,
mead.
yeah, boil it for a few minutes," and then and then also, I threw this here. There's the other one. I threw this in a crock pot for 16 hours.
Holy smokes!
That is just honey.
Crock Pot Mead.
Crock pot mead.
Crock Pot Bochet. This is a
color is the same.
Yeah.
and to clarify, this is
the color.
a burnt mead.
This is a burnt
essentially.
mead, and this is the color of stout.
Yeah, it's
So-
very dark, and it's.
Which one do you like better?
Oh my goodness!
Number
So
one?
okay, this is this is Crock Pot Bochet.
I don't know.
Well, everybody talks about when you make the burnt mead, the Bochet, you got to put it on the stove and you got to watch it like a hawk and all. And I'm too lazy. Just lazy.
I like your honesty.
So I put it in the crock pot and let it go for a while.
At what kind of water to honey ratio?
This was honey into the crock pot for 16 hours.
Straight honey.
Just honey?
Now, just honey. Now, I will tell those of you playing along at home, when you turn off the crock pot, add water. Because I had to do this in 2 batches. And the first time I didn't add water right away, I just let it cool. And it set up like roofing tar.
I bet.
People can just edit this episode for sound effects. This is a sound effects library. It's as if we tried to make.
Sound effects real.
Yeah,
It's like-
yeah.
it's like a Foley
When
lesson.
lasers begin shooting across the,
So
it's like Tim Leber shot first.
yeah. So you got to add water to this right when it's done. But this got so dark. I mean, like, it's the color of stout. Mm-hmm. And it is, well, you'll just have to taste it.
So how much
I'm
water
very
did you add when
excited
it was
about
done?
this.
In the end, this started out as 7.5 pounds, 10 pounds of honey.
Thank you.
And I used honey from Costco. They have True Source honey, but I figured if I was going to boil it for, 16 hours in a crock pot, it didn't really matter if it was my good, nice.
You know what it is, not to make it sound less appealing, but if you're listening and you're wondering what color this stuff is, it looks like a bottle of Iota 4.
No,
It does.
Stout.
It
It is
looks
the
like,
color
it
of
looks
stout.
like we're about to drink Iota 4.
It does.
It's kind of reddish. There you go.
Okay, so you just put it on high.
I put it on low for 16 hours.
Oh, low, so honey on low
For
for
16
16 hours, and then how much
Okay.
10
pounds
water
of
did
honey.
you add?
10 pounds of honey. And then this is a 2.5 gallon batch. So after it was done, I brought it up. Amanda's here looking at me like I'm crazy.
I haven't tasted it yet, but
haven't
looking at
tasted
their faces.
I've smelled it. Oof.
Yeah. It is a different beast.
I like the smell of it.
Oh.
I actually really like the smell
I
of it.
like it.
I like it a lot.
Oh my god, the taste of that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Comes
This is
on,
amazing,
but it has
man.
this bitterness from, I guess, the
The,
burning,
the
right?
caramelization, yeah.
It smells like a dark rum. Like a really dark,
Yeah.
black strap
Yeah.
rum.
Oh my God.
This actually comes across more as like a sipping rum.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't really want to smell the rum, but when you taste it, it is just that it has so many layers to it. That vanillin, that kind of oak, that kind of.
Just
and
light me a
also-
big fat cigar and I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm ready for the night.
The only
Yeah.
thing I did to this, other than burn the honey, was I added an ounce of bourbon oak beans. The little oak cubes that I had soaked in bourbon. I didn't add any of the bourbon. I just added the oak because I thought it needed a little structure to help bring it together, and that's it.
So I don't.
what's the
I don't.
yeast?
So I don't know that we've gotten specific on how much water you added. What was the
Okay.
original gravity of this?
Let me see if I've got this on my phone because I figured this was just us going to share and talk, and I didn't think this was going to be on the podcast. So
Now I've had.
Oh,
I think.
right.
I think it was Matt Whitey that sent me the Bochet Mead
Yeah.
before, and
What's the ABV?
this is. I mean, this is similar from
yeah,
my recollection.
It's only about 10.
There's kind of coffee flavors,
Yeah.
because there's that caramelization kind of a thing going on.
Yeah.
But there's a
This,
sweetness
for-
there.
this is like
Hey,
I
for
would.
me,
This,
that is a low gravity mead. If it's only 10% alcohol,
I'm
that
sorry,
is low
we're-
test.
we're drinking
I don't know if this
session
is
mead?
purely
Yeah,
like
this-
a color association that I'm making subconsciously, but it has like almost like a little bit of an iron, like kind of overboiled hibiscus kind of thing, that I'm kind of getting on the back end.
The amount of aromatics that came out of this I was surprised. Now, I don't know anybody else I've talked to about this. Now, I have to admit, I was very suspicious of doing this. And a guy in my homebrew club did one, and he didn't go this far. But it was good, and I thought, well, I'll give this a try. And then I thought if it's worth doing, it's worth really doing. So,
Now, that's just so it's 10% alcohol.
around
What-
10%.
What's the OG and FG?
The OG is around 11 is around 1130, and the final gravity was down around 1030. It didn't go down as far as I thought it would, even though it fermented completely because there was a lot of unfermentable sugars by the time you caramelize it and everything. But I mean, if you look this bottle, you can see it's stained from that color.
that is amazing.
And I'm sorry if I missed this when I was off doing a cannonball, but what kind of honey was it?
This is honey from Costco
Okay.
that they sell in the five-pound things.
All right, okay.
And I used 2 of them, and I did each one in the crock pot for about 16 hours. And like I said, for the love of God, people, if you're going to try this, put water in it when you turn off the crock pot. I can't say that enough. But it
And what
is
yeast?
Level 71B.
Now, I think that this is more kind of floral than the previous Bochet mead that I had. The previous was. Did you have? You
I did.
Have some of
I
that.
was on the tasting on
It
that,
was
yeah.
more kind of coffee to me, and it was darker and kind of more
Roasty.
burnt flavor,
yes.
but in a good way.
Yeah.
This is less of that burnt characteristic, although this has it. So I think maybe the old-fashioned way will give you more of the kind of burned flavors than this, but shoot. A lot easier than this.
Actually, I want to hear more about this crock pot because I learned in my yogurt making experiments that they are not all created equal. So, Tim, what month?
Oh wait, Amanda, what's your last name?
Amanda Burkhamper,
And you're from Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Yeah.
I just gotta go get some food because
Okay.
that's really what I was coming through.
Amanda
Thanks
was in
for
my
joining
old
us,
homebrew.
Amanda.
Right, thank you guys. Yeah, we're at Kansas City Beer Meisters is how I know him.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but she didn't join till after I moved to Seattle.
Yeah, he still claims us occasionally.
Yes.
I apologize if my kid's swimming got a little bit.
No, it's all right.
So,
It's all right.
in return, here's a bottle of habanero traditional mead.
Oh my God!
Oh, there we
Okay,
go.
no, you have to you have to join us.
Do you have a glass? We'll before you start.
Pull up a chair.
Glass really quick.
Yeah, pull
You
up a
can't
chair.
do that.
Okay, only in a homebrew conference.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. But so I want to hear more about this crock pot. Is it a vintage crock pot? First of all,
it's a new model crock pot.
would you mind sharing if you know who? Yeah, brand.
It is a crock pot brand.
A
Crock pot.
rival, I think. Rival make a
and
crock
it's,
pot?
it's the one with low and high.
And the recipe is high.
No, low.
Oh, low. I put it on low because I put it on high until it got moving, and I left the lid on. I think that might be a secret. Is I left the lid on because I was afraid that if I left it off,
the heat.
well,
kept
I was afraid the moisture would
Yeah.
boil out completely, and I'd end up with a crock pot full of carbon, which is not what I was going for. Even though that is the color.
We tried to make Belgian candy sugar one
Candy
time,
syrup,
and
yeah.
we ended up with pretty much carbonized.
No, but it worked. It worked. We added some water, and it worked.
Well, it did.
It
but
was good.
But
we also paved a road with it.
I mean, it was well. So that's just
We
the
made
thing
a
is,
beer with
that
it.
is
It was-
exactly what happens. To
It
this
wasn't
honey.
exactly what we were looking for, but it was good.
That is exactly what happens to this honey if you don't add water when you turn it off. Because the first batch I didn't do that, and it took forever to get it out of the pot, and I had to basically add water and rewarm it. The second time, turned off the crock pot, and I added water back up to the line it was because it reduced by about a third in that time.
Yeah.
Back up to the line it was, and it got real nice and syrupy again, and it poured very, very beautifully.
And we have a new guest on the show. Moved down the couch for,
Jeremy Volts with the Arizona Society of Homebrewers.
This
he
is
gets
the
the
Bochet we're
Bochet.
talking about. I call it succubus.
Yeah.
And your kids we've heard in the background, which
Yeah.
is okay. It's a live ambient environment, and you have also brought a mead as well,
Yeah.
right?
He brought mead, so he's okay by us.
Yeah.
Now I may have to somehow I may have to rinse my cup with pool
Yeah.
water.
Oh yeah, that
But,
is that is the thing about this is that is the last thing you're going to drink in that cup.
Well,
then
this
hit
one's
me
got
with just
this one's
like that
got
much
habanero peppers in it, so I think it can maybe.
A habanero mead, I'm all over that.
Yeah.
Tell me your first name again, because I've already forgot.
Jeremy.
Jeremy. All right.
Jeremy. Steve Wilkes.
Nice to meet you guys.
I'm James Spencer.
Nice to meet you guys.
Tim Leber.
Tim Leber, how you doing?
Andy Sparks. Will Gillespie. Not Gillespie.
So
That's wonderful. What do you think about that?
This is really good. I've always wanted to make one, but haven't been brave enough to.
crock pot, dude.
Start the boil
Crock
it.
pot's the way to go.
Crock pot.
My impression is that it's delicious, and like everybody said, it has these hugely complex flavors, like a dark rum or like molassesy, kind of like that. But it also kind of, as I said first, it has this kind of bitter, burnt edge to it. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if I did this, I might add back some uncooked honey to give it some sweetness to back that, to kind of richen it up and smooth out that little bit of bitterness at the end.
Well, Amanda, before she ran away, blended some of this succubus, I call it, with the bread yeast mead. To do just that, she blended them half and half, and that was actually a pretty nice flavor.
Well, now you got to name that.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to call this. Actually, I've considered using this honey darkened like this as an element for making a stout or a porter, or to add to, other meads to make them a little more complex, a little more interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's cool.
I'd consider blending it with a beer also to make a braggot out of it.
that's an idea. Like, this is pretty much, I tell people this is a stout mead. because I think that's probably, if you tell people it's a stout made from honey, they kind of have an idea of what it is. They know what to expect. But I don't know. This was an experiment. I got to see where it goes.
Going down my gullet.
Yeah,
It's going in my belly. Getting my belly.
It has very kind of almost salty kind of minerality to it.
Yeah.
On the mid palate.
and it's amazing. It's really just the honey and a little bit of oak to kind of round out the edges, but it's really just the honey. So
And you did your standard multi additions for the
Yeah.
nutrients and stuff.
yeah, I did what I always do: staggered nutrient addition, degas, religiously every day, as long as you get 2 to 3 bubbles. A bubble every 2 to 3 seconds or more. I degas, and I think that makes all the difference in the world in making mead.
Did the fermentation pretty much proceed in line with your other meads?
Yeah, faster.
Faster.
The only thing I've had go faster was the mead I added coconut water to, which just took off like a rocket. It was done in 3 days.
Well, that was delicious and different and different from the other Bochet. I mean, I've only had 2 other Bochet meads, and they were both from Matt. I hope it's Matt. My memory at this point.
You can fix it at post.
That's right. But it's different from those. But it's just as good, I think. It's just it's a bit sweeter. It's a bit more. I think it retains more of the honey characteristics because it's a little bit floral, I think.
Well, I think putting it in the crock pot doesn't boil it quite so hard and drive off all the aromatics. It caramelizes the sugars nicely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really pull off, drive off all those aromatics. So.
And where did Jeremy?
Let's move
forward.
Jeremy was
Oh,
smart. We
Jeremy.
got rinse water.
Jeremy got
because
rinse water. Oh,
I
my
basically
God.
polluted everybody's glass.
That's the nice thing about having
Let's see if I
room
see if,
right here.
see if I can pour this right on my leg.
I stole it because the man took both of mine.
This is okay, Jeremy. We have a guest mead. What are we?
Well, I was taking a nap and I heard 71B 1122, and I said, I bet they're talking about mead out there. So I got a whole cooler of mead in there. So
Oh, you and I got to hook up because I've got like a
Clone
dozen
Eye,
bottles of mead up in my room right now. So.
Hi-oh. Yeah. The what used to be called Pro Night is up next.
yeah.
The welcome reception. We have to pace ourselves.
Yeah.
So let's open. Do you mind if we open yours?
No, for sure.
While we're opening and pouring, why don't you tell us about the mead?
So it's a traditional mead made with orange blossom honey and 71B 1122 yeast. Like he was saying, staggered nutrient additions and degassing to get a pretty quick fermentation on it. And then after it was done and cleared, I added some chopped, de-seeded, and deveined habanero peppers to it.
Ooh.
Going for not overpowering to where that's what you initially taste, but just that kind of at the end you go, wait a minute, there's something there.
Yeah.
And then as the glass warms up, and this is a pretty cold sample, but as the glass warms up and the mead warms up, kind of each sip after that you'll get a little bit more of the pepper in it. And so I wanted it subtle. I didn't want something that was going to be too hot to where you drink it and go, whoa, that's way too bad. But just something a little no. I do a lot of habanero peppers with beers and stuff also, and so I was doing that with some beer and had some mead ready to go and thought, well, let's try this and see what happens. So.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
It is sweet up front. The honey flavor is really good.
It's a sweet traditional mead. I think it finished at 10:26 or 10:28 or something like that. I don't.
But you're right, and
the original gravity on this one.
I think I get the flavor. Ooh, that second sip. I think I get the flavor of the habaneros as well. I mean, because peppers have a flavor, even if they're the big hot ones.
Especially habanero.
And
they really have a very distinct
They're very fruity.
Yeah.
People don't think about it, but they're very fruity. You can slice into the side and throw it into a pot of chili and then fish it out later. And you get that fruitiness and the heat, but not overwhelming heat. So I like this.
This is actually very citrusy, I think, which is really kind of unexpected and interesting. What's the base, honey?
Orange blossom. So that's probably where you're getting a lot of that citrus from.
Andy?
Yeah, the fruitiness comes through loud and clear. It's delicious. I was very hesitant. I'm not a fan of pepper stuff.
I'm a
pepper
chili
beer
pepper
and stuff.
curmudgeon myself. Yeah.
And I mean, I can feel it starting to build. The heat starting to build a little bit now, but yeah, delicious fruity fruity flavor. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yep.
I think you got it just about right on this. The heat is there, the flavor is there, but the heat builds. But of course, I eat a lot of Vietnamese food, so and Thai. I live in Seattle. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a pho restaurant. So
Yeah, I was going to tell you, just really, if you have any more bottles of this, you really need to take one of them to the nearest taco stand.
Yeah.
Because it'd be awesome.
but the heat builds. It's there, but it's not overwhelming. It just, I've had, a couple ounces here, and I don't feel the need to blow my nose or anything. So it's very good, and so it's nice and solid. It's a very good use of the chili, I think. So that is a good job.
The struggle with the peppers, of course, is each pepper is different, and each batch of pepper is different, and so I try to target about 2.5 grams per gallon of chopped peppers, and sometimes that's perfect. Like in this case, it was perfect. Sometimes it's not enough at all, and you'll sample it after a week or two and won't get anything, and you'll end up having to add more and more and more.
You did say de-seeded.
Yeah, I do de-seeded and deveined also to get more of the flavor of the pepper than the heat.
Yeah.
And with the habaneros, the heat's going to come with it no matter what.
Now, yesterday at the BJCP reception and training, Michael Fairbrother talked about adding chilies to meat, and he said that he only adds them for 72 hours to get what he wants out of them. And he had talked about having a ghost pepper. I don't think he didn't sample it. Of course, a little fuzzy. There was a lot of meat at that reception, but I do remember, because I wrote it down, he said 72 hours is what he likes to leave chilies on for, because he thinks much longer than that you start extracting the vegetal character. So
how long did you leave these?
This was about 5 days, so a little bit longer than that. But that's what I found also is the oils and the peppers are getting extracted out into the meat almost immediately because of the alcohol content. You're sitting at 12 to 14% or even more alcohol, and so it'd be like drop a chili into some vodka and taste that vodka right away, and you'll taste that chili immediately. So I don't think you need a long extraction time like you do with dry hopping a beer or anything like that, where you want to go 5 to 7 days or longer than that sometimes. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think the more I taste it, I mean, the heat builds a little bit, but not enough to where it's uncomfortable, and then the flavor of the flavor of those peppers comes through quite well. So I think we've had
it's outstanding.
As you know, this is I guess we figured out it's your third appearance, Tim, on the show.
I think we're down to 3. We got a couple more ideas coming, but I think this is the third official time. But
and every time you've come on, you've wowed us with the experiment and then the bonus meads afterwards. And now we have Jeremy. Okay.
Making sure we've been drinking mead before you came out here, Jeremy. So.
We have a guest edition.
Mead drinkers are kind of like bees, right? They they flock to where that honey is. So.
Dude, now, will you go away and dance in front of other mead drinkers?
I'm going to do that later to give directions.
Yeah, exactly, to give directions back to where we are.
If you see me wiggling at pro night, because I'm giving directions over to where the mead is.
Yeah. Well, gosh, this has been incredible again, and all I can do is say thanks, everybody.
Thanks for letting me crash your party.
Yeah, oh no, thank you.
You brought a good mead, so
an amazing afternoon.
Yes, and into the evening.
Yeah, and into the evening.
And thanks to Will for finally making it on.
Yeah, it's just I'm so tickled to death that I was able to meet up with you guys here. And if anybody back in Arkansas hears this, I miss you and I love you, and come drink beer with me in San Diego.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Andy and Steve.
You're welcome.
James.
Thanks, kids in the pool.
We'll add the summertime background and the whole thing.
Well, thanks again to Tim, Will, Steve, Andy, and Jeremy, and Amanda. And the random anonymous woman who was looking for a phone charger who wound up on the cutting room floor. What a great afternoon. I swear I'm going to do that crock pot thing. And the habanero mead was also amazing. And who knew that you could make a really tasty mead with bread yeast? Somebody out there just said, me, I knew you could make a tasty mead with a bread yeast. If you said that, and you know how to make you have some experience with bread yeast and mead, send me an email because I'll be back to reading the mailbag next week. I'd love to hear your story. And if you've made Ancient Orange and you made a good one, you let us know about that as well. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with an 8-DVD combo, and you can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. If there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are South Bend Crab Trap Bait Cage and My Little Pony, Power Ponies to the Rescue. Thanks again, everybody. Remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget, you can also join the American Homebrewers Association. And remember that special offer from the beginning there. Go to homebrewersassociation.org, click Join, and use offer code BBR, and you can get a free copy of Designing Great Beers. That offer ends August 31st. You can also subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine with the associate link on basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is brought by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.